All right, I'll let you sit down and get settled.
Packed elevators.
Is that what, yeah, I noticed that. The House Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture, Rural Development, and the Department of Natural Resources will come to order. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
I'm chronic paper shuffle. I apologize. I had all this time to read. Here we go. Representative Horton.
Here.
Representative Bueller. Representative Green. Present. Representative Roth. Representative DeSena. Here. Representative O'Neill. Present. Representative McKinney.
Here.
You have 5 of 7 members. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Rep. DeSena moves that the minutes from the meeting of March 12, 2025 be approved. Without objection, the minutes are approved. All right. Well, thank you to the great crowd that has come here today. Today we're going to start with a presentation from Rebecca Park, Legislative Counsel from Michigan Farm Bureau. Rebecca, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I am Rebecca Park with Michigan Farm Bureau, and I thought the time we have together today, I would just kind of give a high-level overview of what Farm Bureau is, what we do, how we try to impact farmers on a positive basis every day here in the great state of Michigan, and then weave in some of our policy priorities as we look into the next year. So we are over a 100-year-old organization. Many of you might know us as a family of companies. Perhaps you utilize insurance services from Farm Bureau. But what actually got us started was agriculture. And so back in 1919, transportation and roads, believe it or not, was an issue back then. And at the time, they were looking at funding our roads through frontage. And you can imagine that farmers owned a lot of that frontage, and so they thought, we need to have a voice in the legislature. We need to have agriculture represented. And so they came together and created Michigan Farm Bureau. We are the state's largest general farm organization, representing all of agriculture with over 41,000 farm families that we call members. We do this through a variety of activities, and I wanted to just highlight a few of them for you guys today. So promotion and education is a big part of what Farm Bureau does. We try to help educate both youth as well as the general public on where their food comes from. We do this through agriculture in the classroom. We do educator outreach, where we help train teachers in how to incorporate agriculture literacy into their programming. We do Project Red, or Rural Education Days. That looks different. Sometimes we are able to bring the students out to a farm and they can see the animals in their natural setting, and other times we bring the animals right to the school. And then we also do different activities at local fairs, which you guys might have seen over the years. We also have a farm science program. So today we have 2 trailers and 1 van. We learned the hard way that navigating those long trailers in some of our urban areas is kind of difficult. So we incorporated a van into our arsenal. And we're focused in the K through 5 education groups. And we're able to bring the field trip to the classroom, if you will, right out in the parking lot. All of our lessons are aligned with the state science standards. And since 2017, we have been able to reach over 10,000 students and 400 educators through these farm science programs. During COVID, we had to get a little creative because schools weren't open the same way and they weren't welcoming folks through their doors to talk with classrooms. So the idea of farm crates, where we create the educational curriculum and we pack it up into a crate and ship it out once a month. So we have 400 crates that go out every single month, reaching roughly 10,000 students. And in 2022, we started a new social mission for Michigan Farm Bureau to help end childhood hunger in Michigan. We do this through a couple of different ways, primarily volunteering and then fundraising. So from a volunteer perspective, we have statewide volunteer days twice a month or twice a year, where we invite all of our family of company employees, including our insurance agents, to come together and do volunteer hours. In 2024, we were able to donate over 1,200 hours through these efforts. We also have Teamwork Tuesdays once a month at home office, where all of the employees are invited down to the social atrium, and we pack food baskets on behalf of the Kids Food Basket Program, which operates over on the west side. From the fundraising side of things, we've had our charitable agent fund for a while, but we've added to that to help our insurance agents really take a more active role in this area. So we encourage them to partner with their county farm bureau and identify a local school district that's struggling with hunger-related issues and work together to help address that. And through the Agent Charitable Trust Fund, we can do matching grants to those programs. Also new, and I thought might be of interest to this committee, particularly on the venison side of things. So this is brand new. I don't have a lot of details. We're still establishing this, but we're creating a committee that comprised of farmer members, insurance agents, and Farm Bureau employees. They're going to look at both short-term as well as long-term goals in this venison donation space. We're hoping that by taking deer off the road, out of the fields to help reduce crop damage and have an added bonus of getting high-quality protein into our charitable food system, that we can have a really great win for all. Let's talk quick numbers on agriculture. So we are one of the most diverse agriculture states in the nation. We have about $104.7 billion to Michigan's economy every year, and we employ through the food and agriculture system around 800,000 employees. According to the National Ag Statistics, we're 97% family-owned. We are #1 in a number of commodities, including tart cherries, cucumbers, dry beans, and we rank in the top 10 for many others. We're home to 1,000 dairy farms, 400,000 cows, producing roughly 12 billion pounds of milk every year. I've talked a little bit about family of companies, commodity partners, and we do work directly with our commodity partners, all of our executive directors across the state, and we feel that working together and pushing in the same direction helps to make Michigan's agriculture economy a lot stronger. We also work with our land-grant university, MSU AgBioResearch, specifically the College of Ag and Natural Resources, and so obviously we're going to support things like funding through the Ag Bio Extension Research line item, which is in the higher education budget, but we also support their efforts in the climate resiliency space, and I won't spend a lot of time here because I know Dr. Smith is behind me and can give you more information on the actual research and programs that have been happening in that area, but suffice it to say, there's some really big questions to be answered in the agriculture arena, and it's going to take multidisciplinary, multi-year research projects to help answer those questions, but we think that if we can do that, the sustainability and viability of our farms will be strengthened. And then also in your budget today, you have the Michigan Alliance for Animal Agriculture funding. That focuses more on the livestock side of things for Michigan agriculture. And you know, there are a lot of other agriculture states across the nation, but Michigan has its own unique challenges. Think high water tables, for example. And so the work that the university is able to do in that space is very critical for the industry. Each of you should have received a Michigan Farm Bureau policy book in your office. We dropped those off earlier this year. I forgot to bring one with me as my prop, but hopefully those are in your offices. If you need more information on that, please let me know. We get that policy book through our policy development process. So we are truly a grassroots-based organization. Each of our farmer members come together at the county level and they say, you know, we think Farm Bureau should have a position on X, whatever X is. If they agree at the county level, then it comes to our state policy development committee. That's a committee comprised of 20 growers from across the state, and we do our best to represent the different diversity of crops that we have here in Michigan. And generally speaking, those folks can only serve 2 years on that committee. And we do that purposefully so that we're always getting fresh and new ideas to the table. That group will then slog through anywhere from 1,200 to 600 policy, we call them resolutions, that come in through the county farm bureaus, and they make their recommendation. They deliver that at the annual meeting, typically held in Grand Rapids, and our voting delegates ultimately decide what goes into that policy book. And so, you know, it's not going to be a surprise to many of you that I want to engage on behalf of Michigan Farm Bureau in the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program, or the Agriculture MEAP. That is up as a 5-year sunset every year. We're excited to engage in that conversation, definitely see value in the program continuing. We're going to be active in cottage food conversations. In fact, tomorrow the House Agriculture Policy Committee is taking up some cottage food, honey and maple syrup conversations, and we will be active in those. It might be interesting to some of you, though, through that policy process, we're also going to engage in the educational arena. So the Michigan Merit Curriculum conversation, valuing CTE and other vocational programs are part of that policy process as well. So I promised to be brief and quick. I know I threw a lot at you in a short time, but I would be happy if there's questions.
Yes, you were very brief, which I appreciate, and you spoke very quickly but very clearly and articulately, so thank you for that. Do we have any questions from the members? Rep. Roth.
Hello, how you doing, Rebecca? Good to have you here in front of us. I appreciate it. What is your general feeling on the MEAP? Are you hearing anybody pushing for more regulation or less cooperation from farmers and Farm Bureau? Because that is something I watch all the time.
Yep. No,
Very
that's a great
concerned by
question.
that.
Thank you, Representative. I appreciate that. You know, MEAP has some really important tenets in our opinion. It's always been voluntary, and we value that very much. There's a confidentiality piece of it through utilizing our partners in the conservation districts to help a farmer walk through information. Think about it. You're opening up, you know, your farm, your home to someone, and you want to be able to be comfortable and have really good conversations and be honest with them of, hey, maybe Grandpa put a drain tile here however many years ago. How do I best deal with that? How do I fix it so we don't have problems? So there's some really important tenets to the MEAP program that we definitely want to see continued. I think as I talk again with our commodity partners, a lot of folks are saying, yeah, we see value in it. I know that there's been conversations about the amount of money that's been going into the program, and we're definitely willing to have those conversations.
All right, any questions? Rep. McKinney.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director, for your quick presentation. Really do appreciate that. Sorry I lost my voice, changing weather and all of that, but just want to ask a couple questions. There have been multiple extreme weather events, as you know. How do these extreme weather events impact farming operations?
Great question. You know, it depends on the area, it depends on the year, it depends on how extreme it is. We've had situations where it rains so much that farmers can't get into the fields without tearing up fields. And so we have to look at the bigger picture and make sure that things like their property tax status doesn't change because they weren't able to plant a crop that year. So it's a great question, and I also think that's where some of the climate resiliency conversation comes into play of how can we best make a healthy crop and a healthy soil to keep everyone viable.
Thank you. And just a quick second question. How can the state protect farmers, businesses, if farmers find PFAS contamination on their land, crops, or animals?
Yeah, PFAS is a big issue for everybody, and the challenge with agriculture is the farmer didn't do anything wrong if they happen to find it on their farm. And so I know there's been conversations about could we create some sort of an indemnity fund or things of that nature, and we are engaged in those conversations.
Thank you.
Rep. O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Director. Thank you for being here. Just to follow up on the PFAS issue, which, as you said, is a big topic for us all. Do you have any research to show how many other farms in Michigan that could be contaminated by PFAS, and just from communicating with the farmers?
Representative, I appreciate the question. I don't have any of that data with me right now. Let me circle up with some other partners who are more engaged in that research, and I will get back with your office.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Rep. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to follow up on the follow-up on the follow-up. When we talk about PFAS contamination, are we talking about, in our agricultural setting, obviously it comes from multiple locations, we use that term contamination. How do we define it? Are we talking contamination as finding the presence of PFAS, or are we talking about PFAS reaching a certain level of contamination? Can you give us the industry's take on the word contamination.
You know what, I'm gonna punt on this one only because I am not an expert in all issue areas, but we do have people that are. So let me get you the right information, Representative, and I will definitely follow up.
I just want to make sure that we're using the same definitions for words when we use the term contamination. Thank you.
Vice Chair Mueller? Did you have a question? All right, we'll go to Rep. Roth.
Sorry, one of my colleagues kind of brought up something that I'm always interested in. Last year, the cherry crop, people were saying that climate change created a problem with the cherry crop. Well, sort of. I'm always concerned about what we just label as climate change or something. The cherry crop is very dependent on a very low-level water level through the whole time the season. But if you get a thunderstorm really close to harvest, you split the cherries. So how do we define truly climate change and when you just get a weather event that really is not advantageous to the crop?
And that has happened over the years. Weather events happen on a regular basis. It's not uncommon. Farmers, to some extent, are kind of gamblers because they're dealing with whatever the weather throws at them that particular year during that particular growing season. I think you bring up a good point that it all depends on when it comes in terms of what kind of damage it could or couldn't do.
Yeah. And that's, that happened last year. It's not uncommon in our northern Michigan area with the cherry crop where last year they got the rain just when they needed it, mostly through the season. It was a little drier season, but they got it. And then we got that thunderstorm towards harvest and really caused a problem, which is not uncommon in early July or even mid-July in our area. We've got cool water temps and we've got warm weather that comes up. So yeah, I'm always a little bit concerned about just throwing out the word climate change when it is a normal thing that we have to worry about in that industry. So thank you. I keep working on that.
All right, any other questions at all? Hearing none. Rebecca, thank you very much for your presentation today. All right, next we'll hear a presentation by Dr. George Smith, Director, Michigan State University AgBioResearch. Doctor? Oh.
Chairman Borton and members of the committee, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. We could spend a lot of time talking about the challenges that our farmers, our growers and ranchers are facing, unprecedented challenges which really are impacting their bottom line. I'm here to talk with you and provide some examples of unique programs in Michigan that can help provide solutions to not only help secure the economic environmental sustainability of the #2 contributor to the state's economy, but also impact every Michigander. And new programs that really reflect the land-grant mission and the unique mission of MSU AgBioResearch and Extension to do research on behalf of farmers, on behalf of growers, on behalf of ranchers that positively impacts their bottom line, and then the mission of our partners in Extension that get that out to people in the industry and communities that can use it and apply it in a beneficial fashion, not only for agriculture, but every Michigander. So I'm pleased to be with you today and share that success story. So the first program I want to talk about is named the Agriculture Climate Resiliency Program. That's the name that has been adopted in the appropriations language in FY24 and FY25 for this new program. This new program that resulted from a grassroots effort driven by our commodity group partners in agriculture, the plant-based commodity groups, and our general farm organizations like Michigan Farm Bureau. When myself and the Director of Extension, Quentin Tyler, went and met with our partners in agriculture and said, what are your biggest challenges for the future? What are you worried about? What can we do to help? Resoundingly, what we heard from all of our ag community partners was climate in the context of extreme weather events and water. Climate and water, climate and water. These are issues that impact all of our commodities in the state of Michigan, whether we're talking about fruit growers on the ridge, whether we're talking about vegetable growers in southwest Michigan, whether we're talking about people that produce dry beans in the thumb. These are common issues. And how can we develop programs that build healthy soil, which is critical to our farmers' bottom line? Building healthy soil also helps plants pull CO2 out of the atmosphere and has a positive beneficial effect. How do we utilize the water we have more efficiently? Michigan is the most diverse agricultural state with a reliable source of water. Some of you that have heard me talk before have heard me say this. We're not going to brag about being second to California anymore. We're going to brag about being first. And that relates the challenge and the opportunity for the future. We have to use the water we have efficiently, and we have to protect the quality of our waterways so that my kids and their kids and their kids can experience all the beauty and what makes Michigan special. So goals of the program, totally driven by our stakeholder partners. They asked us to put together a program to do research to address those challenges, and that's exactly what we did, and that's the genesis of the Agriculture Climate Resiliency Program, also known as SEEDS. Established in 2024 through funding from the MDARD budget. Again, it's a partnership. This is what makes Michigan agriculture special. The way the industries, the state of Michigan, and the Land Grant Institution work together to develop solutions to problems that are impacting the state. The program supports research and outreach focused on resiliency in the face of extreme weather and protection of water resources. Again, it's a partnership. Would not be successful without the key role that MSU Extension plays in this, getting the information out to people and use it. First year of the program, there was $1 million in recurring funding provided to support key faculty and extension positions, to deepen the bench in key areas, to bring these multidisciplinary teams together to solve these problems. And one-time funding in FY24 for competitive grants, which I'll describe to you, and then $5.1 million in non-recurring funding in FY25 for the grants program. And I'm here to provide some examples and really help you get an appreciation for the potential impact of this program. So we'll start with the grants program. $5 million in 2024, we funded 4 projects that we really think are going to make a difference, and we're directly driven by the needs of the industry. And our industry partners are deeply involved in the program, as are our partners in the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, drafting the request for proposals, reviewing the proposals, and making sure the work that's funded is relevant to our industries, can make a difference. So we funded 4 projects in FY24. The first is focused on increasing resilience of tree fruit production and really developing climate-smart technologies to optimize irrigation and fertilizer management. Sensors that measure things such as moisture of the leaf in multiple locations within an orchard, so you're irrigating only when you need it and only in the amounts you need. The same thing with fertilizer application. Sensors that can develop monitor the nutrient needs in the soil in real time. So you're only applying fertilizer when you need it, where you need it, in the right amounts. That saves farmers money in terms of cost of irrigation. That saves farmers money in terms of the cost of fertilization and nutrients, and it also has benefits for the environments. That project's off and running. You can see some of the details on my slide. So the second one is focused on groundwater use models. That's an issue currently in the state of Michigan. We have access to fresh water, 20% of the country's fresh water. We want it to stay here, not be shipped to other parts of the country, but we have to use it efficiently. So this project is focused on developing new models that look at groundwater flow, nutrient pollutant fate, and transport modeling to develop new models to better predict availability of water and help facilitate the process that farmers go through to get access to drill wells for irrigation. And you can see some of the examples of how far that project has gone in its first year. And keep in mind, the first year of the program, our faculty received the money in May. So it was really, the first year was kind of a ramp-up year. But those projects are off and running. The third project is really focused on regenerative agriculture. You've heard a lot of talk of regenerative agriculture. The Department of Agriculture and Rural Development is doing a lot of work in that area as well. We have some of the world leaders in regenerative agriculture at Michigan State University, active research and extension to look at those programs, do they work in a Michigan-centric context, and demonstrate to producers if they do, how it affects every aspect of their operation, including economics. So this is the third project funded, working on farms to kind of demonstrate that technology so farmers can see it in action, decide for themselves in a whole budget model, and ultimately if it works, it's farmers telling farmers it works. Or if it doesn't work, then, you know, so be it. Hence the power of research. And the fourth project is really focused on new tools to help our fruit growers, small fruit, tree fruit growers, deal with some of the impacts of extreme weather on pests and diseases. As the weather changes, the insect pressure, the disease pressure changes, and hence you need new tools to manage these challenges. And that's what this fourth program is about, is helping address pest-specific management concerns on early season management, bloom prediction, and management of apples, blueberries, cherry, and grapes. How you apply the tools that you need to deal with these challenges, again, at the right place, in the right time, and in the context of changing weather patterns. We also recently funded four projects in 2025. I'll go through those quickly. The first is focus on pathways to sustainability and resilience of Michigan commodities. This is a project led by Dr. Bruno Basso, who is one of the internationally leading experts on precision agriculture, to develop tools to help farmers understand on a subfield level areas of their field that are productive, that aren't productive. So you're not wasting money on nutrients, you're not wasting money on seed planting where you're not going to get the appropriate return. And to help farmers manage all these variables in complexity and be more productive and, you know, spend less on nutrients when they're not going to make a difference. Good for farmers' bottom line, good for the climate, good for managing nutrient runoff in our waterways. The second one is an AI-based forecasting and management system to build resilient agriculture. This is using new tools of artificial intelligence to develop prediction models for farmers in this project in the Lower Peninsula, looking at the interaction of the genetics, the type of seeds you plant, the environment, the changing weather, and management to help predict what's the best scenario for farmers, okay? Directly related to goals of the program. The third project is focused on climate-smart practices to enhance environmental sustainability and economic benefits. This is leading-edge tools to prevent nutrient loss through drainage tile and lessen environmental consequences to better monitor what the impact is. And the fourth project, again, is another regenerative agriculture project to sort of show whether regenerative agriculture really does have positive impacts on water retention, nutrient flow, and things like that in the context of several different crops. We also hired new faculty to kind of deepen the bench. I'll run through those quickly. Two of those were in the Department of Biosystems and Agriculture Engineering. Dr. Geary works on water quality issues, an area where we're lacking the expertise, working to advance understanding of hydrological process and the flow of water in national human systems. He was one of the faculty that got funded in FY25 for one of these projects. Dr. Alizada, again in Biosystems and Agriculture Engineering, does work on water quality, water use monitoring, and things like that. Third position we've hired already is Dr. Tolhurst in Agriculture, Food, and Resource Economics. We want to help farmers understand not only what the impact of extreme weather events is on their bottom line, but as they look at adoption of new programs, what are the economics involved, which we understand that drives a lot of decisions in agriculture and is an important variable that our producers need to know when they make decisions on whether a program is going to work for them or not. And the fourth is Dr. Huseth in Department of Entomology, who's a world-leading expert on insect ecology and the impact of extreme weather, other facts on pest management, emergence, and things like that. Final two positions, we'll be interviewing for those in April. One focused on life cycle assessment of agricultural systems, and the last one focused on geospatial climate modeling. And two extension educators we've hired, one focused on precision agronomy and the other working on cover crops to enhance soil health and reduce nutrient runoff. So my final, I'm going to go quick. final few minutes, I want to talk about the Michigan Alliance for Animal Agriculture. This is a special program in my heart because I was involved in getting it started when I first started at AgBioResearch. And Representative Green, your father, was instrumental in the start of this program as well. So, and it's really had a big impact. Established in 2014, again, example of strong partnerships between MSU, Michigan Agriculture Industries, and the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. Research and extension to address the annual top priorities concerns of our animal agriculture industries. Funded at $3 million through the MDARD budget for research and outreach projects. It was in the governor's budget recommendation for the current fiscal year, funded last year, et cetera, et cetera. So I could go on and on about the impacts of this program. I will tell you, because we had this program, we were immediately able to put some of our scientists at work to address some of the issues associated with the HPA outbreak in dairy cattle, which, as we all know, was totally unexpected. And I want to tell you one other final success story. You know, one of the big costs for dairy farmers is feed, costs of feed. And there's been a lot of research emphasis put on nutrition. How do you change what feeds animals in a beneficial fashion? And a lot of it focused on amount of fat in the milk. Dairy farmers are paid not only for fluid milk, but by milk components. Milk fat demand is increasing in this country and worldwide, of course. Everybody loves ice cream. So a faculty member by the name of Adam Locke has been doing work looking at different fatty acids and how they impact milk production variables. What Dr. Locke has shown is feeding high oleic acid soybeans to dairy cattle has a tremendous beneficial impact in that the cows eat less, they produce more total milk, there's more milk fat in the milk, and you look at a whole cow level, the savings are $1 per cow per day. Now that might not seem like a lot, but think about it in the context of a 500 or 1,000 cow dairy over the course of a year. That's pretty tremendous savings for our dairy farmers, which directly impacts their bottom line and also has positive impacts on environmental sustainability. These are a few examples of these two, transformational programs that we're really happy to have a part in executing AgBioResearch and Extension. It wouldn't be possible without the strong partnerships with Michigan Agriculture and the state of Michigan. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. Smith. We will go to questions. I'm going to get us started, too. I'd like to ask one here. Do these programs receive other funding besides state appropriations?
Yeah, they do. Our faculty are really successful in leveraging additional funding from other sources, federal sources, and things like that. And in terms of economic benefit, USDA statistics would indicate there's over $20 of economic benefit. We're about ready to do an economic analysis of MAAA because it's been going for 10 years. A sister program, which is embedded within the AgBioResearch and Extension budgets, Project Green, there's about $5.2 million a year. The first 20 years of that program, over $2.5 billion in economic return to the state. My book, that's a pretty good return on investment. So the answer is yes. This often is the starting point that leads to other sources of money through federal funding, industry, et cetera, which wouldn't be possible without the state's investment.
Okay, thank you. Rep. DeSena?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, George, for coming today. And as a caretaker of ruminants, I've benefited from the programs that Michigan State has, and I just want to say that we oftentimes think of the higher education umbrella, and this is outside of that to me because these are producers and people who have farms that partake in nutrition clinics, Dr. Earhart with the sheep producers. The best thing to feed ruminants is grass, what's provided for free, but we have a problem with, it's called winter. And so you end up having to resort to very expensive feeds. But my biggest concern, and it's kind of, you mentioned it a little bit, and I think it's potentially very troublesome for our animal agriculture, is the labor and the production and the processing industry. We are not able to process our animals economically like other states. And if you look at our state in terms of beef cattle production or sheep production, we're down towards the bottom. And with our available source of water that you mentioned, it doesn't make sense that we would be that low. So I'd like to get our Michigan State and our Agricultural Committee in tune with how do we promote more processors and getting more people and sustain and save the processors that we have through we as government officials not making it too burdensome for them to stay in business.
Yeah, I appreciate your question, Representative. I will share with you that there's been 2 projects funded by the Michigan Alliance for Animal Agriculture. Well, several that focus on processing, but at least 2 that directly address issues related to water and some of the regulatory concerns associated with small processors that are facing from a water perspective to really provide the data to help inform policy. I would also tell you, in the context of the AgBioResearch mission, we invest heavily in faculty in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. We also invest in faculty in the College of Engineering, including faculty that are working on tools related to automation and mechanization that are going to be important for survival of our specialty crops industries in the face of rising labor costs that can impact processing. And we could certainly do the same on the processing angle in terms of livestock.
Thank you.
Rep. McKinney?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for your presentation. Just a couple questions. Outside of the avian flu and other outbreaks, what other challenges are Michigan farmers facing, and how can the state better help?
Boy, where to start, but let me give you a few examples of things we're already doing, and you do invest, in which we definitely appreciate it. It's fundamental to the work we do through the higher ed budget, the base funding for AgBioResearch and extension, along with special programs like this. So a couple examples. The labor issue is a big one. You all have probably heard about that before. It's an existential crisis for our specialty crop growers, and really you could translate that existential crisis to other areas. So we're not going to solve all of it through research and development, but we certainly can. So that's an example of how the base funding for what we do is so important. We have created some special programs to attract talent from other colleges like the engineering school to help develop new technologies to help farmers with some of the challenges with labor, including one example, an asparagus harvester. Asparagus harvester that is cost effective. That's one big issue. There's some of this technology is available in Europe, but will actually work on farms. So that's one example. I would say the 2 programs we talked about and funding in the future for these programs are going to be absolutely critical to our ability to work hand in hand with Michigan agriculture to solve these problems and to secure food security for this country, for people in the state of Michigan and beyond.
Thank you for that. And speaking of food security, one of the things I'm hearing from our farmers and just the industry overall is PFAS and the biosolids, right? And so that's a huge problem that's going on here in Michigan and probably in other parts of the country. But can you touch on how does PFAS move through the food chain via crops and livestock? And then does this pose a risk to our food supply?
Yeah, Representative McKinney, I'm glad you asked that question, and particularly in the context of the previous conversation. So I want to tell you a little bit about the genesis of what is the Center for PFAS Research at Michigan State University, which is probably one of the leading efforts in the country to provide science-based information to help inform policy, provide solutions for farmers, and appropriately assess the risk involved. So not long after we started to hear about PFAS contamination in the state, started getting calls from state agencies, the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, Department of Natural Resources, and others. What's known about this problem and what can we do to help? So AgBioResearch quickly put a team of investigators together to take a deep look about what do we know, what do we not know, what are the opportunities in Michigan, and how do we mobilize the talent and expertise at MSU to help provide solutions. Hence the genesis of this center, which has been very, very successful. And we certainly have our faculty involved in that effort and others that would be happy to come and testify in whatever fashion if that's of interest. So We also work very strongly in partnership with the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development and talking to many people downtown, talking about the need for research, because the questions a lot of you asked, the answer is we just don't know. And classic example of that was the farmer in Livingston County, which was in fact impacted by the fact that PFAS contamination was found on his farm. I'm pleased to report we are actually doing research on that Livingston County farm to try to develop solutions and answer the questions, all right? If you have farm that was, biosolids were used, fertilizer, totally acceptable practice at the time, and there's PFAS in the soil, are there different types of crops that take up that PFAS in different rates? Could you grow ornamentals? Could you grow Christmas trees? Are there amendments to the soil that can be used to sequester the PFAS? And back to your question, how much is actually taken up by the plants, and then what is the accompanying risk? And Representative Green, your question, what are the appropriate levels? That's all driven on the regulatory agencies. The EU has set certain levels, EPA set different levels. We're also looking at risks involved and looking in the context of livestock. If you have cattle, in this case, that were raised on ground that had PFAS in it, and the moms have PFAS in their circulation, well, what happens to the calves when they're born? Do they have PFAS in their circulation? If they don't, maybe there's a solution for the producers. So the goal of this work, which we're pleased to be involved in, and that, state investment from MDART has leveraged additional federal funding, is to develop solutions, sort of turning productive farmland into a parking lot. That's the mission of the land-grant institution, AgBioResearch and Extension, to do practical research that can lead to solutions. So we have a lot going on there. It's a whole nother topic, and we'd love to have the opportunity to share with folks if they're interested.
Thank you.
All right, Rep. Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This isn't really a question, it's just a suggestion. The AAA program, my story from 2019 is I knew what AAA was, the American Automobile Association. And I went to my first committee hearing in DHHS, and we had the AAAs there, the Area Agency on Aging. So I was like, okay, I think I got this. And then I went to my first ag meeting, and we had possibly you presenting on the AAA. And I left my first week in the legislature completely confused as to what a AAA was. So just wanting to be a blessing to you.
Point well taken, Representative Green. Academics are notorious for getting too hung up on acronyms, that they understand what they mean and others don't. Michigan Alliance for Animal Agriculture. Appreciate the comment.
Rep. O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for just your insight. I'll tell you, where would we be without MSU Extension and your services? That leads me to a question in terms of, with all the tariffs and all the changes coming from the federal level, if any, what impact will that have on our ability to keep providing these type of very important services that you just articulated?
Yeah, Representative, it's a great question. So the take-home message is our programs in MSU are already being impacted. Probably the biggest impact so far is on 3 very large programs funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development. One focus, which we call the Food Security Program, focus on ag policy and trade in developing countries. One, which is a biotech potato project, which is focused on developing potatoes that are resistant to late blight, a major disease pressure on potatoes, that if you can overcome that in developing countries, huge implications for food security. And we know what happens in developing countries when people don't have access to food, political unrest. And the third is focused on legumes, dry beans and things like that, which are a major source of protein in developing countries, helping breed new varieties, look at markets, look at seed availability and things like that. So these 3 programs, unfortunately, were terminated, and there's not much hope for the future. So the point I want to make is they not only have an impact in those developing countries, but they directly benefit U.S. agriculture as well in terms of access to new markets, in terms of application of the technologies that are developed. In some cases, it's access to new varieties that aren't available in the U.S. that lead to the next generation, dry bean variety that also performs well in Michigan. So that's probably the most significant impact so far. We're doing our best to deal with it, but it has impacts beyond the developing countries. Beyond that, just a lot of uncertainty, which we're going to have to navigate through. We're doing our best to help our faculty and students, hang in there, but tremendous uncertainty. I would say what's going to be really, really important is strong support from the state of Michigan continuing, because we also get dollars to help pay faculty and support our infrastructure, AgBioResearch extension, and both through what's called federal capacity dollars from USDA. Now, so far, what we're hearing from leadership on the appropriations side is this is important. We get it, agriculture is important. We're going to be okay. But there's a lot that remains to be determined. But I'm very proud of the fact that we were in D.C. doing visits the last weekend in February, and when we went into offices, we heard multiple times, the Michigan ag community was just here. And the message they delivered was the importance of funding from the federal government for your work, AgBioResearch and extension, money for research, money for extension, how it's critical to Michigan agriculture. That says we're all in it together. We couldn't do it just with the federal money. That the strong support we get from the state is absolutely critical to serving the breadth of Michigan agriculture and having an impact in every community. But a lot of it's just kind of on hold and dealing with the uncertainty, just like our farmers are dealing with a lot of uncertainty right now.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. Rep. DeSena.
I can't think of anything more important than food, other than maybe oxygen. I was listening to, as you were talking about the PFAS, and I think it's an important distinction, and maybe you can mention it, about the biosolids that it wasn't the fault of the farmer. He was relying on a testing result saying that the biosolids spread on his farm were clean and just contained normal sewage, and then next thing you know, all of his cattle are infected with PFAS. Those biosolids didn't get there by accident.
Right.
Okay, Rep. Roth.
Thank you, George. Good to have you here. Since everybody's talking food and cattle and everything else, right? I don't want to forget about turf grass, since that's part of my background.
You can eat that too.
You can eat turf grass. You can play golf on it. You can do all kinds. Your research on water usage and that kind of thing has been very beneficial to golf courses and anywhere that has turf grass. And we do appreciate that quite a bit. And I don't know if there's anything new on the horizon, but that does save businesses all across the board a lot of money when we're using that correctly. And your reports, your things, the growing season reports are are very critical for the growers and businesses. So thank you for that. And I don't know if there's anything new on the horizon that you might have or you can share with us.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Representative Roth. That's another example of a highly impactful program. I get to a lot of field days. I enjoy all of them, but that one's especially rewarding to see, the number of people from throughout the state that are involved in management of golf courses and other things, and how they come to MSU and rely on the research and the efforts of extension to get that information out to help that big part of our, recreation industry. So we continue to do good work there. Probably the only new thing I'd tell you about from a turf grass side, which is interesting, is more related to soccer. So everyone's heard about the 2026 FIFA World Cup. MSU, in partnership with the University of Tennessee, is raising the turf for the 2026 World Cup, and has developed transformational technologies to be able to actually put real grass into indoor stadiums and to grow grass and have fields at different elevations in different weather settings that all performs the same. And think about in the context of soccer, when the ball hits the turf, how it bounces off the turf. When a player has to plant in the turf, that uniformity is so important. And when I think about impact of our programs, and it's huge, but think about how many people will turn in across the world to watch the 2026 World Cup. We're talking billions of people. And those billions of people will be watching those athletes perform on turf that was raised at Michigan State University, that the new technologies were developed at Michigan State University. So that's a point of pride for us as well. And maybe it's the one new thing on the turf side worth mentioning.
Rep. O'Neill.
We can listen to you all day, Dr. Smith. I mean,
I'm having fun,
this is really
so
exciting stuff.
got lots of time.
Thank you for accommodating us having these questions.
Absolutely.
And so just a follow-up in terms of other programs we have, such as SNAP, WIC, Double Up Food Bucks, and local food, the local food purchase assistance program. How does those programs benefit or impact our farmers here in Michigan?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a great question, Representative. You know, in the face of the tremendous advancements in technologies that have been developed in food production, you know, we still have people in this country that don't have access to healthy food. The last statistics I looked at, over 1.3, 1.4 million people in the state of Michigan experience hunger. So, and I've met with urban farmers. I've listened to their concerns, and we need to do more to help them. So those programs are directly related because long-term viability of our agriculture industries is enhanced when we can enhance local markets for our food as well. Think about what happened during the pandemic and people walked in the grocery store and didn't have access to healthy foods. So what can we do to provide access? What can we do to help urban farmers? What can we do to help address those issues? And a lot of that, you know, comes through support from the federal government and those programs that you mentioned, that MSU Extension is heavily involved in execution of those.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none. Dr. Smith, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in today and for not only your presentation, but for fielding all our questions. So very informative. Thank you for that. And thank you to Rebecca, too, for doing the same. We appreciate you being here today. All right, we have no absent members, and there being no further business before the subcommittee, we are adjourned.